Dr. Max Reichard, R-E-I-C-H-A-R-D. I guess my longest title was Professor of History and Humanities at Delgado. About half of my 33 years I was teaching in a classroom. Delgado is a very interesting community college because although it is a community college today, which means it has what's often called a three-part function, providing remedial or developmental education for students who are not ready for college work, providing transfer to universities, and providing job training at both the certificate level and degree level. Its origins are really that of a school which was intended to train, provide manual training for boys in New Orleans. One reason for that was that there was some training for girls at what was then Nichols High School and post-high school, almost like a junior college at Nichols in the Ninth Ward of New Orleans. But clearly there was a need for manual training, and Tulane University instituted a study in the 1890s suggesting that one be developed. And this was kind of a rage around the country. Most major cities had these kinds of manual trade schools for boys. The problem was, as you can imagine, as always is funding. Tulane wasn't interested in funding it, and the city and the state were certainly not interested in funding it. And so eventually a group of businessmen developed the idea of doing it. And Isaac Delgado became the lead figure among those businessmen. Isaac Delgado was a businessman here in the city who had come from Jamaica in a mid part of the 19th century, had gone into business here, and had become quite a successful businessman, had made a lot of money here in New Orleans. And he, besides donating a large part of his wealth and possessions to establish the New Orleans Museum of Art in 1911, he also, in his will, left a large bequest to set up a manual trade school for boys. Now, it took about 10 years to open the school up and to have a building built. And the reason was that the city and the school board fought over control over the Delgado money. Neither one take the responsibility for organizing the school, but they wanted the money. And so finally, at the end of World War I, the city got control of the money. It was made part of a city department, and eventually the plans were drawn, and a person was hired to head the school. Quite a well-known educator from the north, from Pennsylvania, I believe. And this man, Mr. Martin, ended up being the first, and until Marvin Thames came here in the 50s, the only director of the school from 1921 when it opened until 1953 when Dr. Marvin Thames Sr. came to direct the school. So that it had a very tenuous beginning, in a sense that it was not attached to any educational institution. It was on its own a part of a department of the city. And its board of directors were appointed by the mayor, and its functions were under that board of directors, who were influential citizens in the city of New Orleans. And they controlled this school until the state took it over in the 1970s. So that basically we had a city school on its own without any kind of connections either to lower education or to higher education. When it opened in 1921, interestingly enough, even though it was designed to be a school for young boys, 14 years on up, it ended up taking on the task of educating a lot of particularly disabled World War I veterans. And it's a good thing it did, because probably one of the reasons it did so, is because, again, the funding was a problem. The money for the building and so on was, of course, Delgado money, but the operations had to come from the city. And so federal funds helped to, in fact, get it started by having this, if you like, adult education program, which, in fact, may have been, we're not certain, well, I'm not certain, it may have been the bulk of the students in the early 1920s. And it began with about, again, I don't remember exactly, but about 12 to 14 what we call trade programs.